Hi, my name is Megan Moore, and today I'll be introducing you to Jean Piaget. Jean Piaget was born in Switzerland on August 9, 1896, and he passed away on September 16, 1980. But let's backtrack a little bit. Piaget showed interest in natural sciences by the age of 11, and he continued to study natural sciences all throughout college and eventually obtained his PhD in zoology in 1918. Piaget's early career in psychology didn't begin until he started working with Alfred Binet, who created the first intelligence test. And what Piaget has helped with Binet was that he helped translate the intelligence questions from English into French, and he also took part in scoring the assessments. And what piqued Piaget's interest while doing this was that he observed how children of the same age were giving the same incorrect answers. But we'll get into that a little bit later. In 1923, Piaget married his wife, Valentine, and they had 3 kids together. And a fun little fact to know is that Piaget actually used the observations and studies that he got from his 3 children to help develop his theories later on. Piaget was one of the first constructivism theorists, and constructivism is basically an idea to help explain how people make sense of their experience. And Piaget took part in cognitive constructivism, where he later developed his cognitive development theory. But first, let's understand how Piaget helped us understand how children think and learn. So back around in the early 1900s, people just assumed that children were mini adults, and their thinking, their thought process were just as similar to adults. But what Piaget helped us understand is that children are completely different from adults when it comes down to the thought process. And so what he says is that children first learn how to sort their knowledge into schemas. And schemas is basically categories or groupings to help children organize their new information. And they do this by assimilation and accommodation. Assimilation is acquiring new knowledge into pre-existing schemas. And accommodation is modifying those existing schemas in order to incorporate that new knowledge. And so right here, I have a boy who learns the schema of cat. And then using assimilation, he shares with his sister that he saw a baby tiger, a cub, and he says that's a cat. But his sister corrects him and says, no, that's not a cat, it's a cub. And so that is where accommodation then takes place, where the boy creates a new schema for cub, so that way he differentiates cat from cub. Now into Piaget's cognitive development theory. This theory has helped us understand how intelligence grows in children through exploration, problem solving, logical thinking, and he believes that children go through stages, and there are 4 stages. So the first stage is the sensory-motor stage, and this occurs from birth to 2 years. And this is where infants use their senses to explore their environment and to learn about the world. And so there are 6 substages for the sensory-motor stage. We have the first stage being the simple reflexes, where infants assimilate the sources of stimulus into reflexive responses. You have the second stage, which is the primary circular reactions. And this is where infants repeat stimulating actions that first occurred by chance. And then the third stage is the secondary circular reactions, where infants then repeat the stimulating actions because of the effect it has on their environment. So for example, when an infant places a rattle in their hand and they keep shaking their arm or their hand, the rattle makes noise. So they'll continue to repeat that action because of what it does to the rattle. The fourth stage is the coordination of secondary schemes, and this is where infants then coordinate their behavior to attain specific goals, such as when a child sees that their toy is placed underneath the table, they will coordinate their behavior to reach for that toy. The fifth stage is the tertiary circular reactions, and this is where children use purposeful trial and error to learn how things work. And then the final substage is the inventions of new means through mental combinations. And this is where children then use mental trial and error to help them solve problems. Another important thing about this stage is that Piaget emphasized on object permanence, being that it shows maturation in an infant's thinking. And object permanence is basically when objects are hidden, the children know that the objects still exist. And so once the infant has gained the concept of object permanence, they are then graduated from the sensory-motor stage and into the pre-operational stage. And this is where symbolic thinking happens, but they do not have the capacity to engage in logical thinking yet. So this stage happens from 2 to 7 years of life. And symbolic functioning is the ability to make one thing stand for something other than itself. And this takes a very good part in how children also participate in pretend play and parallel play. And another important aspect of this stage is animism, which is where children believe that inanimate objects have feelings and purpose in life. And it's not up until they're about the age of 5 to 7 years that they only believe that moving objects have purpose in life. Another aspect of this stage is irreversibility, which is the child's inability to reverse the sequence of events to where it started. So if I were to pour a glass of milk in front of a child, they'll believe that that milk is stuck in the glass because I can't pour it back into the container where it came from. Centration is where a child can only focus on one aspect of a situation at a time. And so moving on to stage 3, which is concrete operational, this occurs from 7 to 11 years of age. And this is where logical thinking begins in children. And what's important about this stage is conservation. And what conservation is that it's when something stays the same in quantity, even though its appearance changes. So for example, I have a tall glass and a short glass, both filled with the same amount of water, which means that these two glasses have the same volume. A child in the concrete operational stage will be able to tell me that both glasses have the same amount of water, whereas a child before this stage will tell me that the tall glass has more water than the short glass. The final stage of the cognitive development theory is the formal operational, which occurs from 12 years of age and up. And this is where children and adolescents begin to engage in abstract ideas and hypothetical thinking, and to be able to test out those hypotheses. And so my personal thoughts on Piaget's cognitive development theory is that I can agree with how he has sequenced how intelligence grows in children. Where I am a little bit conflicted is the age ranges for each stage, because each child is different. You know, you have children who are advanced, and then you have children who have delays, who need more work on each stage. But I do agree with how he states or theorizes how intelligence grows in children. So how do we use Piaget's theories in the classroom today? And how teachers do this is simply through naturalistic observation. Piaget strongly believed in letting children engage in play and exploration of their environment, because that's what helps them learn. And also for the teacher to allow the children to learn through trial and error, because through the children's errors, it gains insight for the teacher to see how the child perceives the world around them. And it will allow the teacher to offer guidance for that child. And they can do this by providing appropriate materials to help them further, asking encouraging questions to engage the logical thinking or problem solving in the child's thought process, and also allowing children to construct their own knowledge. Thank you so much.